So here in non-duality land, we do a lot of crazy talk. You know, you're going to hear a lot of crazy talk from the non-duality talkers because what we're talking, well, the topic of the day is nothing. And so you'll hear a lot of stuff like, there's just nothing. It's not knowable. There's no knowing it. It's all about unknowing, nothing, the nameless, the timeless, the qualityless, and it can't be known, and there's nothing to say about it, and it's nothing. And you'll hear a lot of details provided about all of this, you know. We'll go on and on. But that's the topic, and that's the concepts, are these kind of crazy talk, like I said. So like unknowing, in a way, the only point of talking is to, well, point to this unknowing, or we say resonate with an unknowing, to maybe even cultivate, if we could. That's a little bit, I don't know, maybe going a little far there, but somehow we're pointing to an unknowing, is the point. And that's not the usual thing, because ordinarily, pretty much everywhere else on the internet, all the other videos that aren't pointing to unknowing are pointing to some kind of knowing. They're talking about knowing. They're trying to produce some kind of knowing, or stimulate or engage knowing, and we're not doing that here. We're pointing to this unknowing and the unknowability of everything, the unknowing of everything. And the point is, if you want to talk about what you can know and knowing, like I said, that's what everybody's doing. That's what we're all doing all the time. But the point about that is that there's nothing real that knowing is knowing. What the fruit of that, what you end up with, well, is a circle. Knowing is about knowing, but it's not about what's here. So it's not about anything. It's not about anything real, just to use a word. So that's why we're not talking about that here. We're talking about unknowing. Just unknowing is just what is, what already is. Everything is simply, you could say, existing in a space of unknowing, which isn't a space. Isn't a space, because if it was a space, then it would be in a place where it could be known. Spaces are part of knowing, part of the mind's making concepts and stories about what's here. So what's here isn't a space. There's no time. And it can't be known. There's nothing to know. Again, knowledge, I can only know something. If there's something, then I could know it. But what isn't something. It isn't anything. It's nothing. So nothing, how do you know nothing? Well, you don't. But nothing is known in a way, in unknowing. Which again, there's nothing to do about that. That's just what is already here. It's all unknowing, unknown in unknowing. It's happening. It's doing. It's already. It's what is. In other words, there's nothing to be done about it. Knowing also sounds like it's something that needs to be done. I need to know. How do you know? How is something known? Well, by knowing it. So there's something to do there. Yeah, there's also two. I'm going to know this thing. Okay, that isn't what's here. This never happened. What's here is just what we call unknowing, and it doesn't get done because it just is. And it's not in this structure of me knowing something else. And again, as I just said, knowing is what it is, but nothing is known through knowing, because whatever I know is just my knowledge. I never know what's here. I never know what is. Again, because it's not knowable. That's why we call it unknowing. But that isn't really recognized. We walk around taking our knowing as if it's real, as if it's what is. And there's nothing to know with what is, again. There's nothing about it. What's here is just what's here. But there's nothing to be known about it because, well, for what I just said, but also because there is nothing about it. Again, it's nothing. There's nothing to know about nothing. That's what I'm saying. It's already complete. The other thing about knowing, which again is how the me proceeds, the me's nowhere without knowing. If you had no knowing, there would be no me. The me is created by knowing. And again, as I said, the me is trying to know the world, trying to know myself, trying to know everything, but it becomes a hamster wheel because all I end up doing is just knowing more knowing. I never get to the point. I never get to it. I never get to me. I never get to the world. I never get to my experience. I just get trapped in this cycle of knowing. And that's what the me experience is. And I started to say something about all of this, and I don't remember what it was. Well, okay, pressing on. So there's nothing to know. This is the first thing, which is good. It's good to know that because, if I was going to know something, I would just end up knowing more knowledge, more words about words, more concepts about concepts. And none of that, I don't need that. It doesn't get me anywhere, and it's useless. Because actually what I'm trying to do with all my knowing, speaking as me in this world where I need to know, I'm trying to know so I can get to the thing, to the point, to the end, I can get completed. So the one who's trying to know is the one that feels incomplete. Okay, but there's nothing incomplete here. This is not incomplete. This is completion. There's only completion. There's never been anything anywhere that isn't completely what it is. Completely everything. Everything is what's here. There isn't anything else. There's just everything, and everything is complete. And that's what the me experience kind of filters out I don't get that. I don't see. I'm looking at everything, but I don't see it as everything. I see it as incomplete, and I feel it as incomplete. The complete incompletion is what I'm feeling. The overwhelming feeling of me, the overwhelming experience of being me, is this incompletion, this feeling of not enough. It takes over everything. It's there 24/7, and it drives all of my experience. It formats it. It takes my experience and puts it into this, presents it to me in a way as this feeling of not enough. Every moment is another moment of not enough. And again, that's why I'm trying to know. And what follows from knowing is doing. They go together. So I'm trying to know and I'm trying to do. With my knowledge, I'm trying to put it into action to get completed, to get enough. Somehow get the enough that seems to be available in my story of my experience. So I'm bonded to my knowing, and I'm bonded to this feeling of not enough. And I'm being pushed forward in time, in my story, and trying to get enough. And that's every moment. Until there's resonance with the truth of what is truth. Truth is not such a great word, but you know what I mean. With what is. The completion, the completeness, the wholeness, the everythingness, the everyness. It's Ariana's word. Give her credit. So, the everyness is what's here. The wholeness, the already completed, the already enoughness is what's here, is what is. It's what I am, what everything is. Everything. Now and now and now and now, here and here. It has nothing to do with knowing, nothing to do with the project of the separate person and the separate experience. That has that's all about knowing. But what's here, we call it unknowing. But we don't need to bother with calling it anything, because it's already it's on its own. There's no one here to call it anything or to do anything about it or to know it. It's unknowing because knowing would require a person, and there's no person available. There's no person here to know anything. So I could have just said that, saved 20 minutes or whatever. It's unknowing because there's no one here to know. And all the ones, we know about lots of ones, persons, people who are having experiences and know stuff. That's all in the realm of the story of knowing. That's where people are. People are in the story. But here in nowhere land, in the timeless, spaceless nowhere, where everything is, there's no people, there's no knowing, there's no story, there's nothing happening, there's nowhere to go, there's no movement, there's just this.